The 2026 offseason is officially here, and today I'm going to go over 10 of my most excited free agents going into the 2026 season. Now I'm just going to start off with 10 of my personal free agent predictions. These predictions are around who I consider to be the top 10 players, and if we like how this one goes, I want to do 10 more in the future. There's a lot of teams that I think are going to be super active this fall, so in this prediction, I'm going to be choosing 10 separate teams for each player. Now what that means basically is that I'm just not going to be doing any repeat guesses. I'm not going to have the Dodgers signing all 10 free agents, I promise. In these predictions, I'm going to do team, years, and annual value. Do I think all of these are going to be correct? No. Do I think I have some good shots at some of these? Yeah. I also have some surprise suggestions here that I don't think a lot of people are taking into consideration. Without further ado, let's get into it. Starting at number 10, I have the top reliever on the market right now, Edwin Diaz. Now they're currently projecting 4 years with a $20 million annual value, and Diaz has made it quite clear that he wants to return to the Mets. Now, although I think that it's extremely likely, I think the Mets have a lot bigger issues to worry about than their bullpen right now. In my opinion, I think that they are going to be far more concerned about their starting pitching, and maybe possibly seeing if they can grab another bat or two. Now when it comes to Diaz, especially when you look at his last 2 years, his peripherals are amazing still. I know his ERA fluctuated in 2024, but I think the fact that he was kind of able to earn his way back in 2025 and overcome those home run issues makes him an even more valuable asset in the bullpen. Now I think there's going to be a lot of hungry teams when it comes to a good closer like Edwin Diaz, so I think he's going to be staying in orange, but not the current orange. My prediction is that Edwin Diaz signs with the San Francisco Giants for 5 years at $110 million, ending up at a $22 million annual value. Now, I would hate this, but I think the Giants, along with a lot of teams in the NL West, have a good chance at a wildcard spot. And especially when it comes to the Giants, I think they have a really serious bullpen issue, basically after selling their entire bullpen at last year's deadline. I think the new coach signing shows that Buster Posey is not screwing around and he is looking to compete next year. The Giants the past 5 years or so, other than that one outlier in 2021, have kind of been the definition of mid. And I think Diaz is a really good shutdown option to kind of take down their NL West rivals. Now, I do think that the most realistic option is that the Mets and Papa Cohen just opens up the wallet and Diaz comes back. But some additional fun sneaky picks could be some of those other NL West teams. I know the Dodgers are going to be in the mix. Padres could end up making a play for it if Robert Suarez doesn't come back and they really do want to move Mason Miller to the starter. Now, my kind of evil prediction here is there a chance, now hear me out, that the Braves make a play? If Raciel Iglesias doesn't come back, the Mets are already struggling to retain. It would be so petty, but I kind of love it. Now my next prediction at number 9 is Munataka Murakami. Now the Japanese first and third baseman coming over from overseas is being projected currently at about 5 years with anywhere between a 15 to 25 million annual value. He profiles currently as a 250 to 260 hitter with serious power upwards of 30 homers. I think it's also important to note that he currently has a career 3.94 on-base percentage. And the biggest thing is that he is only 25. He is going to be entering his prime years now. Now that being said, his contract can really be anything right now. I do believe most Japanese talent right now is going to be reserved to the West Coast. I'm sorry. So I think this temporarily gives us 5 teams to go with. The Angels, Padres, Giants, Mariners, and Dodgers. Technically, you can include the A's, but I'm not going to, sorry. Now, I realistically don't see the Angels or the Dodgers making a play at him. Now, you gotta consider with the Dodgers, they just picked up Muncy's option. Freddie's still got a couple more years left. I don't think they're interested in trying to move either of those guys to second, and I don't think Murakami's the right fit for that either. So that leaves us with 3. Padres, Giants, and Mariners. And my final prediction for Murakami is that he signs with the Seattle Mariners for 4 years at $100 million with a $25 annual value. Now the Mariners' time is now. They were, how many outs away from their first ever World Series appearance? I also think that this deal can happen with or without Josh Naylor. The Giants' corners are kind of filled right now. Well, we got Rafi, Matty Chap, Willie Adames. Now, I guess you could consider moving Chapman maybe and Adames over, but I don't think that that's their top priority. And even though the Padres are in a weird spot, you can just never count out Preller. I mean, he can make any move whenever he wants. And I also think that this specific deal would make a lot of sense for Murakami because it would put him at that 4 years. He would get that free agency when he's 29. He's still able to get some good big money at that point, especially if he's performing. It's not a super big commitment for the Mariners. I don't know. I just like it. It makes a lot of sense to me. Now, next up at number 8, I have one of my favorite free agents this season, and that is Cody Bellinger. listed as both an outfielder and a first baseman. Now, Cody is looking to pass $150 million this year over 5 years, which is kind of somewhere below that $30 million AAV range. I think the big question to me and most people is he going to be closer to Teoscar's 3-year or George Springer's 6-year? And realistically for Belly, I think it does come down to where Tucker ends up signing. I would be pretty shocked if I see Cody Bellinger ink a contract before Kyle Tucker does. Desperation is what I think is going to get him paid this offseason. And I personally think that his 3 former teams are the ones that make the most sense. The Dodgers, Cubs, and Yankees. I think Yankees probably makes the most amount of sense out of all teams. However, I'm going to go with a little bit of a crazy pick here, so bear with me. I predict Cody Bellinger is going to end up signing a 5-year, $140 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers, putting him at about a $28 million AAV. Now, I know that this is a little bit of a lower deal than projected, but I truthfully think that if Kyle Tucker does not land in Los Angeles, there is still quite a big outfield problem that needs to be solved. Now, as unlikely as it is for the Dodgers to kind of take a failed project, if you will, and also as much as the Dodgers' biggest complaint from this last World Series win was their bullpen, I do think the bullpen has a good chance of figuring itself out. I really think that the outfield is the Dodgers' biggest issue right now. Lots of Dodger fans are talking about moving on from Teo already, and I could entertain that ability. But I think the main issue is you just got to get him out of right field. Because it's not necessarily the outfield offense, it's really the outfield defense that I think is probably the biggest hole for the Dodgers right now. We just saw in this most recent World Series all the defensive replacements. Cody's a guy who would not require that. Cody is still someone who was considered a pretty above average defender with 15 defensive runs saved last year. Now this could in theory put Teo back into left, Cody in right this time, and keeping Potts in center. His bat in the postseason also is not terrible. And, if the Dodgers don't feel confident in Cody's regular season, I think we saw from last year, all they care about is building towards October. Now, to add in some additional fun picks here, I think I could see the Kansas City Royals or even the Angels making a play at someone like Cody Bellinger right now. I would probably prefer Kansas City as I want Cody to still be competitive, and I would like to see them try to make some sort of play for a bat. I mean, I guess you could also see Seattle with that kind of logic too. I don't know, but realistically guys, I think if Cody does not sign with the Yankees, I think he's a Dodger. At number 7, we have my guy, Dylan Cease. Probably my favorite starting pitcher on the market this year. Actually, a lot of these early picks are kind of my favorite ones right now. They're projecting Cease at about 5 years with around a $32 million AAV. Now, every other year, this guy is dominant. And then every other year, he's subpar to say. And Cease, as you can tell, is probably one of my favorite arms in baseball right now, and I would love to see a team really lock him down. I think if he gets locked down with a team right now, that can kind of start to put him in a little bit more of a consistent pathway, and we can really start to discover the type of pitcher that Dylan Cease is. His ERA this season might have been above 4, but his FIP was still about a 3.5, which might not seem amazing. Let's imagine some truly amazing defense around him. And plus, even if he doesn't get that amazing defense, he's still a really great strikeout guy. I checked and he had about a 3 strikeout to walk ratio. Pretty solid. He was also a top 5 in Cy Young votes in both 22 and 24, which math, 26 could be a great year. I think any team would be dumb not to take a chance on Dylan Cease right now. Now, for all those reasons that I just listed, I am going to go a little bit against the grain here. I think he signs a short term with an opt-out. I think he knows that next year could be a really strong year for him, and that would be a much better way to enter into the market. Now, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to give 2 predictions, okay? So bear with me here. If it's a long-term deal, then my prediction is the Chicago Cubs at 6 years, $180 million with around a $30 AAV. Now, the Cubs need to find a way to overtake the Brew Crew right now. And as much as they need bats, with them declining Shota's option, they really got to start building a solid rotation there. I think a really solid and dominant rotation can start to inherently bring the bats in, and they can really start to make a dominant stance in the NL Central. Now, if it's a short-term deal, you ready for this one? Okay, I really need y'all to hear me out, okay? Give me the Rangers, 2 years, $72 million, $38 million AAV. Now, the club this year had about a 3.47 ERA, which wasn't terrible by any means at all. But some solid pitching really surrounded by some excellent infield defense could be enough to get those bats moving again in Texas. If you don't gotta worry about the runs, maybe the bats can have a little bit more fun and get a little bit more life like they did in 2023. And just imagine a rotation with the top 4 of DeGrom, Cease, Eovaldi, Leiter, and maybe somehow that alleviates some of the pressure off of Kumar, and he can really step into that gear that we're all expecting him to. Yeah, that's really my big fun pick on Cease. I think there's really every team in baseball makes sense for Dylan Cease, so we're just gonna have to see what happens. Now at number 6, I want to go with our guy Bichette, listed as a shortstop. They're projecting a little over 5 years with around a $28 AAV right now. He had the batting title this year for a while, and don't get me wrong, by no means is he like some amazing defensive shortstop. However, he is 27 and he does seem like he is open to moving around the infield if he's gotta. Because realistically, I don't see him as short more than like another 3 years or so. The years on this deal are pretty tough, I'm not gonna lie, especially with the injuries. Realistically, guys, I think there's only one team that makes sense for Bo, and I think they're gonna pay him. My prediction is he's gonna go back to the Blue Jays, 6 years at $174 million. That puts him at about a 29 AAV. I think, especially after the run that they just had, they cannot break up that Bo and Vladdy core. I think his postseason performance is enough for the Blue Jays to really just hand him a blank checkbook at this point. They were willing to lock down Vladdy. Why shouldn't they lock down Bo? Now, if this was at the beginning of last year, I would see Bo walking. But I think after the performance that they just laid out, they're still smelling it, man. They want to go back. And Bo was a good piece on why they got as far as they did. I think the only reason he semi-cost them any part of the World Series is because he was still recovering. Imagine 6 more years of him at a much healthier level, possibly moving him to third. I don't know, it makes a lot of sense. For some fun picks, I still think that the Red Sox and the Tigers are going to kind of dip their toes in there, especially the Tigers, see what he's willing to be given up for. My super fun one that I think I had at the beginning of last season, which makes a ton of sense to me, is the Atlanta Braves. They're still looking to lock down like a franchise short after getting rid of Dansby. I think the bat is what they need right now after what happened last season. And I realistically don't see what happened last season happening again. I'm not just semi-confident, I am extremely confident that he goes back to the Blue Jays. This will probably be, in my opinion, my biggest miss. Next up at number 5, I've got Kyle Schwarber, DH. They're projecting around 3 years at about a 33 AAV right now. I don't have a ton to say on Kyle, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Obviously, he was the NL home run leader, still has at least probably another 2 years or so guaranteed of being like an elite power bat. But as a vet, I think he's just looking to secure some good guaranteed money. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because I think the Phillies just still make the most sense. He's a DH who means a lot to that city right now, and I think this allows them to extend their window quite a bit still. My final prediction is that he just goes back to the Phillies. I'm looking at about 4 years, 136 mil. That puts him at about 34 AAV. I think the Phillies are willing to cough up a little bit more just to keep a good franchise guy around and to keep their window alive. He was a big part of their success this last season and postseason. I think, funny enough, both the Mets and the Red Sox don't make a lot of sense. I think a sneaky fun pick is both the Detroit Tigers and the San Diego Padres. I don't know, something about it just seems so AJ Preller. Like quite literally just getting a bat to keep up with Shohei Ohtani. I don't know, that does make a decent bit of sense. At number 4, I have probably the best starting pitcher on the market with Framber Valdez. Looking at about 4+ years at around a 32 AAV, he's a ground ball pitcher with some serious postseason experience, so there's going to be some teams looking after him. Also, with him being a ground ball pitcher, you want to think of some defensive-minded teams first and foremost. Now, I think it is important that we have to address the elephant in the room when it comes to Framber. That end of season drama does not reflect good on him. Whether he really did cross up the catcher or not is up for debate. However, I do think that this could affect his contracts. That being said, the team that it comes down to has to be willing to take those risks, be defensive minded first, at least in the infield, and possibly be willing to rewrite any narratives about Framber. So a team that's willing to take a risk on the drama for the upside of his talent, I think my prediction for Framber Valdez is going to have to be the Baltimore Orioles. I think they'll sign him for 5 years at $155 million. That puts him at about a 31 AAV. Now this Orioles rotation has to start somewhere, especially after losing Corbin Burns. And being in what's already a really strong division with the AL East, they gotta start picking up some slack. I'd also like to think that the Orioles have a pretty good defensive infield overall. Now I am gonna keep his contract kind of on the lower side of his projections, not just because of the cross-up drama, but also because of his slight struggles towards the end of the season. But being that I think he's probably the top guaranteed pitcher this free agency class, I think most teams would be willing to take that risk on him. Now the Astros still make a lot of sense for Framber, but I think they would have gotten an extension done by now if they were looking to lock him up. I also really like the Cubs, the Braves. You could throw in the Yankees, I guess. However, my 3 sneaky favorites would probably be both the Giants, the Blue Jays, and I guess actually the Rangers too. All 3 of those teams have some of the best defensive infields where I think Framber would really be able to flourish with any of those 3 teams. So if the Orioles don't make the jump, I'm landing on one of those three. Now, to round off our top three, I have Alex Bregman listed as a third baseman. Most projections are putting him at a little bit over 5 years at about a 32 AAV. Now, I think what's super important to address with Bregman is that he is a Scott Boras client. I think that alone is going to eliminate some of our options because he's most likely going to get paid. I think Boston should definitely keep their eyes out on Bregman still. I wouldn't be surprised if he went back, but I really love Bregman to Detroit. The question is, are they going to be willing to open up the pocketbook? And that being said, there is a good amount of teams that could benefit from having starting third baseman at his caliber. But at the end of the day, I think the Tigers might actually do it. My final guess for Alex Bregman is that he will sign with the Detroit Tigers, 6 years, $192 million. Now, keep in mind, this pick hugely relies on the idea that the Tigers do not move on from Skubal. If they do trade Skubal in the offseason, this prediction is entirely null in my opinion. Now, I don't want to cheat and pick two answers, but if the Tigers do move on from Skubal, my guess would then go back to the Red Sox at basically the same deal. I also really like the Phillies. That would not shock me at all. I think for my sneaky fun pick though for this one is gonna be that the Cubs maybe move on from Kyle Tucker and replace him with another former Astro, with Bregman. Bregman's probably the least secure I feel out of all these remaining free agents. So we're just gonna have to see what happens with him. Now at number 2 on my free agency predictions, I have Pete Alonso, former first baseman of the New York Mets. They're projecting our dude Polar Pete at about 5 years with around a 30 million AAV. Like I said with Bregman, he is also a Boras client, so I think that this does eliminate some teams right off the jump. He's obviously an extremely durable player, but he's not exactly the most reliable defender, especially when it comes to first base. But when we're talking about Pete, we're talking about power and postseason. And the first base market isn't super wide, so Pete's value is at an all-time high. But either way, at the end of the day, even if reports are suggesting contrary, my final guess is that Pete Alonso signs with the New York Mets at 6 years, $180 million, putting him at a $30 million AAV. Now, it's been made clear that Pete wants Freddie money, and I think if anyone's going to give that to him, it's going to be Steve Cohen. Now, there's a lot of picks that make a lot of sense for Pete. The Yankees make a lot of sense, the Red Sox make a lot of sense, both the Rangers and Phillies you could also convince me on. Another sneaky fun one is the Mariners. My most fun pick regarding Pete Alonso though has gotta be the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, it really is hard to imagine Bob Nutting opening up the wallet for anyone right now, but if he's going to do it, it's going to be right before the CBA agreement to say that he's spending. I think this gives him some talking points. If he's going to put out a multi-year deal for someone, I think it's a big slugger like Pete. He's not going to go more than 10 years for anyone. Pete's not going to be demanding anything close to that realm. I obviously have his Mets deal at 6, but there could be a world where it's a 4 or 5 if he signs with the Pirates for maybe a really high AAV. Because really, with the rotation that the Pirates have, they just need 1 or 2 big reliable bats, and a wild card is not far off. I'm friends with some Pittsburgh fans, so it's hard not to want Pittsburgh to make a big move this offseason, and I think out of everyone, Pete makes the most sense. And finally, you guys, we have the man of the hour himself, Kyle Tucker, listed as our right fielder. Now, they're projecting our boy Kyle Tucker at over 10 years. Could be as close as a $40 million annual value as well. It's a big boy contract, and I think a lot of that value comes from the extension that Vladdy just signed last year. He's got a great hit tool, power, defense. He's got a good arm speed. He's really a 5-tool player. He's ranking in above a 4.6 WAR the past 5 seasons, with his lowest being the last season at that 4.6 marker. He's hit more than 20 home runs in the last 5 seasons as well. He's been top 20 in MVP voting 3 times in the past 6 years. This is really a 30-30 player for the foreseeable future, and he's hitting free agency right before his prime. He's gonna get locked up for a good amount. Now, you could say that Kyle Tucker could be a franchise face, however, in my opinion, I think he would be a good kind of side piece, which was going to lead to my prediction here. My final prediction for our top free agent of this class, Kyle Tucker, is that he will sign a 12-year deal with the New York Yankees, coming in at $468 million with around a 39 AAV. I don't think it's crazy to say that he could end up on either the Mets or the Dodgers at around the same rate as well. I don't see the Dodgers looking to lock anyone up for this long right now, as I think they're just trying to claim stake for their window for the next 5 years. I personally see the Dodgers as the least likely of those 3 options, but it wouldn't shock me either way. I think Mets makes a lot of sense too. Have the Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker little combo deal would be really nice as well, but I think it's Kyle Tucker or Pete. This guy has a career OPS of 865 We're looking at an OPS plus of 140, and not that batting average matters, but he's hits 273 on his career right now. He's a 4-time All-Star. There's really not much to critique about Kyle Tucker and his game. That's why I think the Yankees make the most amount of sense, is they are probably the team that can benefit the most from his defense, power, speed, arm, all these different things. I think he plugs in and fills a lot of the holes that the Yankees have been missing, and is unfortunately a really big upgrade from Cody Bellinger. Now, my last sneaky fun pick of the day is gonna be my least favorite team in baseball, the Giants. I think even though he wasn't part of that 2017 squad, his little Astros history could play into a little bit of that supervillain role when it comes to taking down the Dodgers. Also, like I said before, it is the Giants' time to strike. The wild card in the National League is really up for grabs for anyone right now. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, drop a like, and comment which one of my predictions you think is the most accurate and which one do you think is the worst and makes 0 sense. Also, let me know if you want to see a part 2 before the offseason gets going too much. I'd like to drop 10 more predictions if possible, so let me know what you guys are thinking down below.